right? Hello.
Hello. What's up,
Good to
Buttercup?
see your voice. It's so good to see you.
You too. Touch of human.
I know. I want to hug you.
Yeah, take a ticket, love.
Someday, right?
Take a ticket.
I know.
I'm kidding.
It's always been
Yeah.
the case.
How you been? How's
I've been
I mean, it
good.
looks like you're out there in paradise. Where are you, like a Four Seasons somewhere?
I wasn't going to tell anybody that. I'm traveling the world here, secretively. No.
Looks beautiful there.
Upstairs at our house, we have a patio off the master, and I've been just hanging out here the whole time because it just feels so nice to be outside.
No, it looks beautiful.
And
I should have done the same thing. Lay out in my daybed with a cocktail.
Yes, yeah. in your bathing suit, and but
I'm European. We don't wear bathing suits.
That's right. That's a good vision. That's like
yeah. Let's get this live going on the right foot.
I know. I was gonna tell people about. I'm sure you've been doing a lot of these, and
yes.
For me, for you, when I came to see you. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that session.
That experience. Okay, go ahead.
If that's okay.
You want to scare people immediately?
It's going to be a little embarrassing for me, but I'll just lay it out there.
Good for you.
It was such a beautiful thing when it wasn't beautiful at the time, as you know, I was pissed off as hell at you. But when I was telling you about my story and my life and all of that, and you were just looking at me, and I was like, why is he just looking at me like that? And then at the end of it all, he's like, wow, you're really negative. And also you go, you're kind of a bitch.
Really? Did I use that word?
Like,
God, look at me go.
You know what? I've been called that before.
Yeah. I wouldn't have said you were a bitch. I might have said that your behavior is bitchy. Yeah, exactly.
You did.
I would never call the person that, but yeah. Maybe you.
Yeah, you again, see there, I took what you said and processed it a different way than I should have.
Yeah.
It was really the way I was talking and how I was talking about my past and, some of the things the reasons why I'm where I'm at. And I was complaining and negative about it and all of that. And it was just like in an hour or two that we talked, it was such a wake-up call to see how I talk to myself continuously on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. As do most humans, unfortunately, and then they superimpose that on others, which is why we have so much disharmony in the world, right? Because our own sense of inner discontent is something that we then sort of associate with other people, like it's their fault or that they are the cause of our own internal experience, which of course is a complete illusion. So being able to undo that just gives you so much more freedom and power and responsibility for your own experience in life, so sometimes the first few reflections that I give people can be a bit of an owie, because looking at your own behavior isn't always pleasant against the backdrop of our true nature, which is love and freedom, right? So if we notice that in your case you're being bitchy or a guy's being mean or derogatory or mean-spirited, when it's juxtaposed against the true nature of who we are as loving, sensitive, caring beings, it hurts to notice, wow, I'm really making people wrong. And that doesn't feel good relative to my inherent wanting of love and communion with people. So, but kudos to you for having the courage to come and look at it.
I feel like I've been wanting to, do that for a long time. I feel like I work on it consistently in therapy for 13 years or, all kinds of things that I try to, but sometimes, I feel like I'm, 60 and it's a work in progress, but I don't know. That was, I think getting that wake up call was really profound. Interesting. Why that, why after working on all these years and then just hanging out with you for a couple of hours can be so it was almost like 20 years of work that I had done, should have done.
Yeah, that's what they call, well, actually, I just did a podcast with someone who came up with a new potential title, aside from the Mind Architect, because I also helped her with something, and she does a lot of work like yourself. She's a little younger, but in 33 minutes, she actually was looking at her clock, 33 minutes completely dispelled about 3 decades of conditioning. And she's like, that was insane. And yet it dictated every aspect of my life. And that's why I love what I do, because I reveal these blind spots, right? And so the title that she actually came up with is The Magic Mirror. So it's sort of the reflection, but from this place of mystery and magic, to help you see what you can't see as a blind spot, for which reason there's no judgment, but it is nonetheless the absolute obstacle to your own sense of liberation. So it was kind of cool. We did this podcast. It'll come out in 2 or 3 days. And it was actually a really, really profound conversation. So yeah, you got to sit in front of the magic mirror, and all of the BS came to the surface.
It did. And you're right. It was so relieving. It was so freeing. It was like the minute after we talked, I mean, everything, my whole body relaxed. Yeah. The stress just like came out of me.
And that's the thing that people don't necessarily understand. I think they do as a sort of superficial conversation, but the connection that is mind and body isn't a connection. It's one and the same thing, right? We talk about the mind-body connection. But that's like saying water is connected to water. I mean, it's one and the same thing. They're just at different resonances or different frequencies or densities. So as soon as there's a shift in either, you can have a good workout, you can have a good night's sleep, which would look like it's on the physical, but then psychologically and emotionally you feel good. And what I'm doing is obviously reprogramming or revealing these deep constraints and limitations and fears. And so immediately there's going to be a cascade on the body. And sometimes super, super profound. Like it can be scary. I just was working with a client in Singapore who's...
say, how so?
Well, it's scary because when somebody steps into a new frequency, a new dimension on the other side of their invisible constraints that they were oblivious to, the body is going to have to match that because it's one and the same resonance, right? So she went through this huge herxing, which you're familiar with, like a detox physiologically, not because she was taking a lot of supplements or herbs, but because of the energetic shift that she went through. So psychologically, she steps into a different vibration. Her body can no longer hold the pattern that she was previously in. And so she was like shedding from all orifices and, just felt nauseous. And yeah, it was a bit scary. I mean, I always forewarn people that, take it easy. You've been through like what I call egoic surgery. And so there's going to be this repair period. But it's very profound, and it never ceases to amaze me, even though I do it every day for years, the instantaneous shift in someone's physiology once they let go of these internal fears at a deep level. So it's pretty fun to witness. It is magical. So... the magic mirror, baby.
Magic mirror. I like that. Oh my God. Now when I need to have a talk with myself, I'm going to say, okay, magic mirror.
Magic mirror. It's like Snow White. Mirror, mirror on the wall.
What do you see? So what's happening right now, like in terms of, clients that you're working with during this time, are more and more things, I assume, coming up for people?
Yeah, for sure. This is a great equalizer, right? Like, I think there's a lot of polarization, which I think is tough, but it's always been there. These arguments, you've got oppression on one side, you've got defiance on the other, which is really just sort of this wrong, right world. It's been there for centuries between religions and between nations and between husbands and wives, And so what I really hope is that the statement, we're all in this together, which the media keeps propagating, isn't lip service. Rather, it's something that actually we recognize, and we are all in this together. And whether, you're the head of a corporation tearing down rainforests because you want to raise cattle and think that you're doing it to make profit, but realizing you're actually cutting off the oxygen to the world, which you also breathe, it's like we are all affected by all the choices that we make. Mm-hmm. So right now, everybody's fear is coming to the surface in different ways, right? Life was always going to reveal for us whatever it is that we've yet to reconcile individually. And at the most devastating end of that spectrum, there are people literally taking their lives, right? And that's very devastating and sad because it's too overwhelming, the thought, the anticipation, the uncertainty, the feeling of control, the feeling of hopelessness because they've lost their work or their livelihoods. And I think it's very sad that's something that people don't seem to be in leadership positions taking into account, right? All the
They're
focus
not
is on
talking about that. They're
no,
not
no,
talking
no,
about the
because that would
suicide
spoil the
rate.
narrative, right? You know, it's
Right.
like everything's about COVID. So, you know, that's one extreme. And then at the other extreme, you know, we have the hope, we have the unity, we have the revelation or the revealing of some of these darker forces that are at play, whether, you know, we see what's going on in the police forces in Minnesota recently, and that's creating a lot of stir, right? And,
Right.
you know, it's what was Will Smith's quote? He said, "It's racism isn't getting worse; it's getting filmed."
Filmed, yeah.
And
Right.
that's a very
It's
like so.
exposed.
Yeah, so that's the point. Is a lot. This is basically bringing to the surface a lot of things, whether it be personally, collectively, you know, globally. And I think long term that can only be a good thing, right? Like
Agreed.
it's painful. It's like it may seem like a terrible metaphor, but it's like, you know, when you empty your closet that you haven't looked at for a few years and you're like, holy shit, I got some really, really old, potentially moldy things in here.
Right.
Well, you know, when you do that on a global level, there's a lot of ugly that comes out too. So,
Right. Right.
but it's with the greater intention of creating a clean closet, and hopefully we can all find some unity and kindness and harmony that I assert is our nature, what we all want. And despite
Right.
some of these differences, you know, people are going to fight about this and that. And I don't think that's healthy for anyone. You know, it's like,
Right.
okay, what
Right.
can we create that is a new solution beyond the polarity of the traditional dualities that we have in society? So
And what do you
yes.
think that is? Like how, you know, how like each of us has to kind of get in touch with that and create something new for ourselves or individually?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm like anybody, right? I'm in this world of uncertainty, and I live with a lot of trust in my life, which is
Right.
life. I use the expression, life doesn't make mistakes. And so, you know, whether you want to have the argument of people are like controlling us and there's corruption and all these conspiracy theories, and if you want to go down that rabbit hole, that's one way. Or if you just want to believe blatantly what the media keep telling you, and, you know, that's, you're scared of a virus that's going to kill you, despite all the data that shows 99+% of us are going to be fine, you know, then that's also your, you know, that's your prerogative and you can choose that. I think ultimately, you know, we don't know, and I'm just trusting without naivety, but I'm trusting that this is going to create an upgrade in society, you know, that we recognize the damage that we've done to the planet, to ourselves, to each other. And I personally hope that choice in terms of, you know, the responsibility we all have to each other and particularly to our health as a whole, right? I think the whole health system is due for a huge upgrade. It's a disease care or a disease management system. It's not a healthcare system.
No,
and once people start to understand that, which you do because of your journey, and that's no slight. You know, people want to point fingers at pharma and doctors. And I'm like, look, these are human beings. They're earning their money for their 401k and putting their kids through college. And they worked hard to get into a position, whether it be in a corporation or in a practice. So I think we got to get away from the judgment and the finger pointing and look at the overall systems, right? The system of, you know, medication for symptoms has got nothing to do with health. It's helpful to mitigate discomfort, and sometimes it can be life-saving, right? Western medicine is incredible at emergencies and car accidents and surgery.
Of course.
Incredible. And this is why I feel it's important that people don't get into this world of judgment. But for the day-to-day chronic stuff, hypertension, acid reflux, you know, anxieties, depressions, where there's all this pill-popping prescription process, I'd like to think this is an opportunity where we all get to like grow intelligence and go, wait a minute, that doesn't seem to make sense, you know? And so that's the hybrid that I hope is where people feel they need support, whether it be medication or vaccines, they are totally entitled to get it. And for those people who, you know, are really dedicated to their health and wellness through more holistic means, that is their journey, and we can support each other, right? Because if we look at really the sadness of how many people lost their lives or have done, and maybe will continue to because of a virus, again, like 98%, it's very clear, have pre-existing conditions, the comorbidities. What if we could collectively help these people who have hypertension, diabetes, obesity,
right.
cardiac
Heart
disease,
disease.
so that they have less of a predisposition to being affected by anything. It doesn't matter if it's a virus, but just the day-to-day, you know, they're more vulnerable. So what if we could collectively as a society, you know, really help inspire people to understand what it means to be a healthy being, so that you mentally, emotionally, physically have greater immunity to everything. That's what I'm committed to. And in the journey towards that, there are going to be certain support systems that people still feel they need, and we should honor that too, you know?
Right. I think that we have been hopefully pushed up against the wall during this time to really take ownership of our health. I agree. I mean, you know, the society usually waits till they get sick, cancer, autoimmune, you know, the heart disease, and then they take action. They go on a plant-based diet or whatever they do, you know, eat healthier or exercise. I mean, but there's not a preventative mindset here.
No, it's very reactive, and that tends to be human nature. You know, we're not a proactive species or society, and that's something that I'm wanting to help propagate and to inspire people to go, okay, what about, you know, if you did have choice, if you could create your life the way you wanted it versus reacting to the one you don't want, even day to day. Most people go to the gym because they don't want to be out of shape. You know, they don't want to be fat. And that's just, you're always behind the eight ball, right? It's always, you're too late to the party. You've already created a condition that is the source of your suffering or your discomfort, and now you're trying to fix it. So what if we can sort of, you know, circumnavigate that process and avoid, you know, before it actually, you know, becomes manifest in the first place. So, you know, that is the world of prevention that we're seeing up leveling over the years. I mean, Chinese medicine, it's a licensed practice now in the States. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, 5,000-year-old science.
You are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I started
2001,
2001, I started my practice, and so, and it's a really beautiful sentiment in Ayurveda. They recognize that the most revered doctor in the practice of Ayurveda is the one that doesn't have any patients, because he's educated his community how to take care of themselves.
Okay.
Isn't
so they
that
don't
beautiful?
need to come to him. They don't need to, like, they're good. They know what to do. Yeah,
through diet, lifestyle, you know, taking herbs if necessary, and obviously good food. So I would love, you know, again, this is such a big tanker to move in terms of the healthcare system. But what if we could inspire doctors, practitioners, even pharmaceutical companies to create products that are for health as opposed to against disease?
Yeah.
So it's such a beautiful sentiment, and you know, this is 5,000 years old. It predates anything to do with modern medicine, and it still applies today, and oftentimes is the last port of call for people when they're desperate and Western medicine hasn't been able to help them. You know, it's when they turn to, you know, these alternative
other
practices.
modalities, and those you know, those modalities, you're right, are tried and true and been around for centuries. And I know I've seen people just, once they take like ownership of themselves, and you know, also with what you do mindfully, they like reset their mind to think, okay, I really do want to have a healthy life. I do want to thrive. I do want to age in a beautiful way. You know, just, I don't want all those symptoms that we seem to think are normal. When they take that step and then they start eating properly, it's like game changing.
It is, but also, you know, again, I think it's important with all of these conversations that we keep sympathy for practitioners, for doctors, for the healthcare system, because, you know, we've got, again, the spectrum of somebody who sits with a patient 3 minutes, writes out a prescription, and they go and pick up their, you know, their pills at the pharmacy. That's one end. And then we have a lot of practitioners who are recognizing, wait a minute, I'd like to be with this person, spend some time with them, what's going on at home. You know, stress, because maybe they have a shitty job, a shitty relationship, is one of the main precursors to the sickness. So if we don't address the root cause. So I think there's a lot of sympathy for practitioners, doctors, and the world that we're currently in healthcare. And we've got to be very careful that, again, I'm not in the world of judgment. I just want people to make educated choices. But, you know, the issue then is also compliance, right? You could have the greatest doctor who, even in the face of maybe being pressured to write prescriptions for drugs, it's a business, and we got to honor it's a business. but maybe the patient doesn't even want to or can't or isn't sufficiently responsible or disciplined or dedicated to follow the instructions, right? So there's multi-facets to this. And this is, again, where people have to be responsible at the end of the day for their own wellness, regardless of who's telling them what to do. I can give all the greatest counsel in the world, and I feel very confident about the information I share, but I'm not with that person 24/7. So the degree to which they're implementing it, now that's up to them. So there's many facets. And that's why I think right now, one of the greatest things we can do collectively is to just keep enhancing kindness, to keep enhancing patience, to keep enhancing understanding. Everybody's scared at some level, and want to try and dissipate the polarization and understand everyone's got their perspectives and their beliefs, and they honor being listened to.
And be accepting of all of those, accept all the people's beliefs. And I agree.
Yeah, because I think it's very easy to go into the he said, she said, right, wrong, and that never ends well.
So Peter, when you go into that way of thinking or talking, I mean, that doesn't get you anywhere.
No.
I mean, you just you go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So you're not accomplishing anything, and it doesn't even feel good to be talking like that.
No.
It's like
nobody wins there, and I'd like to think that at the end of the day, we all have the same intentions. We all want we all want to feel safe. We all want to feel healthy, and hopefully we all want to get along and enjoy our lives. So if we can just remember that the intentions are the same underneath. We may have different roads to get there, and that's okay. We honor each other's choice of how we get there without having to have any dissension towards each other.
So people are saying, it's hard to change habits. You're so programmed into these habits. So, what do you say to couple of things of how someone can change habits easily?
Again, it's all, so much of it is age dependent, right? Because the older we get, the more ingrained our conditions are, as you can attest to when you sit in front of me versus I sit in front of a 16-year-old punk kid who's just throwing a hissy fit on a golf course. Once they get something, it's they're much more pliable, emotionally, psychologically, and physically. You look at a kid on the floor, they're like a pretzel. And then you look at an older person, they struggle to get out of a chair.
Right.
So we got to understand where somebody at. The older we get, usually the harder the habits are, the more stubborn they are. Mm-hmm. So again, that requires, being gentle and patient and kind with people, and with ourselves.
And with themselves, right?
Yes,
with
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things to recognize is habits. How did they get formed, right? If we understand the nature of a habit usually is something that now is part of the subconscious, right? It's something that we've done repetitively over a period of time that we're able to quote unquote forget about it.
Right.
So if we can just get that, then we know that we've got to bring a little extra attention to it and a little extra time, because it's that much more ingrained. And how did we learn these things that we've forgotten? By rote, by repetition. Our times tables when we were kids, it's how many times you do it. If you're learning the piano, how many times do you have to do the scales? So I think it's important that people understand they may have a great idea. They may be inspired even by something we're talking about. And they're like, yes, I want to be more proactive with my health. But they've got a backlog of being reliant on maybe not the best food, or being sort of dependent on a form of medication.
Yes.
So to be patient with themselves and go, okay, what if instead of thinking I have to change everything this weekend, I could say by the end of 2020, I'm going to give myself 6 to 7 months. Could I be a different human being? And by giving themselves that space, there's a sort of a relief that comes with it. Now, of course, we still need the dedication, but we need the repetition and we need the time to be able to do it. So I think where most people fail with their goals, and especially as it relates to transforming habits, is they don't give themselves enough time and patience, because they're ignoring the fact that that's how they got there in the first place.
Right. They do automatically think they could change quicker than they actually can, right?
Yeah, and some people have, call it willpower, and they're going to force through. And that's okay. I mean, if you can do that, great. But traditionally in psychology...
That is me. And that usually backfires.
Yes. Yeah, because it's still a little bit superficial. You haven't actually addressed. It's like, I remember when I was a kid, my parents, when they were alive, you know, would do occasional gardening and, you know, we pull the weeds, right? And there's a difference between pulling a weed where you get the whole root and it's out versus, say, trimming the root or trimming the weed just beneath the surface. It looks good for a minute, but it's still going to grow back because you haven't actually got to the quote unquote root pores. So likewise with our habits, if we don't, and this is why, you know, I'm biased, it's my work. If you don't change the deep-seated programs of the subconscious, then you could have all the willpower on the surface in terms of your behavioral adaptations, but you're still probably going to default back at some point, which is why when we watch shows like The Biggest Loser, which, you know, very inspirational. People watch someone who's 400 pounds, this guy who then he wins the show or he's in the final and he's 198. He's literally lost half of himself and looks incredible. But if he hasn't changed the dialogue that created the seeking of comfort through food because he felt maybe unworthy or not wanted, then that program is still going to be running in the background so that in 5-6 years, he may well, not always, but very likely will end up back where he was. So, you know, I'm biased is what I do, as I said, but you've got to change your relationship to yourself and your language.
And changing the relationship with yourself and your language, you know, how do you I mean, other than like doing your program, which for your mind is phenomenal. Is there ways you can recommend doing that for people?
I mean, you know, in this day and age, there's so many, we're blessed to have different resources, things like Instagram Live, we've got podcasts, we've got, you know, the whole realm of self-help, self-improvement, self-realization. So it's
so overwhelming out there, Peter. It's overwhelming with what's out there.
It is, and a lot of it's misguided, and a lot of it's quick fix, and a lot of it is maybe even inaccurate. And I think, you know, that's where there's a certain degree of trust that everybody's on their journey and you will attract the circumstances you need for where you're at, right? Why do we attract a certain person, whether it be a friend or an intimate relationship or even a boss or a colleague? Because there's a resonance that we're functioning at that we will attract the circumstances that we need for our own revelation, for our own liberation. So there's no one size fits all, which again is why I said I think it's important for us to have patience with each other, understanding that, you know, what suits you in terms of your own process may not suit me. So it is, you know, there's no silver bullet. I feel good about the work I share, and maybe for some people that's not, you know, they prefer to have some sense of community with their church, and perhaps for them religion is the way that they find some faith or liberation. Some people go to a traditional therapist. I think bottom line, knowing that as a human being, we have work to do, period. It doesn't matter who you are. I think if you start there and you actually do have some practice of self-reflection, then, you know, you're on the right track. You're
ahead of the game. You're kind of like ahead of, for most people.
It might be like sailing, right? If you're sailing into the wind, you have to tack. So you might, you know, it might not be a direct route. It could take a while. You could work with someone. I mean, I've worked with a lot of people who've done traditional therapy for sometimes 2+ decades, and they're like, wow, I just spent 20 years doing something that you completely tore apart in 1 hour, and I've never felt so free.
How I felt.
You know, which is great, and that sounds awesome about my work, but would they have been ready to hear what I said if it wasn't for that previous work? You know what I mean? So again, it's horses for courses.
That's what I was going to say to you. Like, it's, you know, after, you know, 15 years of traditional therapy and then energy healing and Reiki and all kinds of like trying to discover myself in a lot of ways. Right. I wasn't ready until I'm ready. Right. I'm not really, you know, when I was ready to hear it.
Yes. And I think that's where it's easy. We tend to sort of document the sexy moments in our life, right? You know, the pivotal milestones. We went here, we did that, we met this person. And sometimes it's the most mundane experiences, the day-to-day, that really is the access to something that's way more powerful, because without those, then the rest of your life doesn't have anything for a form of relativity or comparison anyway. You know, it's like this, I remember I wrote an article about eternal happiness, or the search for eternal happiness once for a yoga magazine. And I don't know, I said to the editor, I'm not sure you're going to like what I write, because the whole premise of having eternal happiness doesn't even make sense. Because let's say you had eternal happiness, well, then just by virtue of the fact that we only experience through relativity, you're not going to know that you're happy anymore, because that's all you've had for a period of time, right? So
Right.
we need the dark, we need the light, we need the comparison. So I think just to be more kind, more compassionate with ourselves. We have good days, we have bad days.
Right.
But if we can keep nudging the needle towards that sense of freedom, which is, again, my main product, is to be free from the constraints of our mind, to be free from the sense of inadequacy, to be free from the feeling of insecurity, then, you're, again, like you said, you're ahead of most people, because that's something you're committed to.
You made a point there. It was really interesting. You said the day-to-day.
Yeah.
So I know I hear from a lot of clients and a lot of friends, they're like, oh, the day-to-day is killing me, in terms of, but that's such a beautiful thing you just said that I took in. Like, we have to cherish the day-to-day.
Yeah.
Basically is what you're saying, to learn how to really move forward, and to really, like, all we got is today. Right?
Yeah, and I think it's one of the less attractive assumptions of a human being is that we're going to be here tomorrow. And I can speak from experience, because my mum died when I was 7. We knew she had cancer, so that wasn't, quote unquote, such a shock. She'd been sick for a while, but nonetheless, she as a mother would not have wanted to leave the planet with a 7-year-old son. And then more profoundly, to this point of the assumption of a tomorrow, as my dad went to work one day when I was 17, and he never came back because he died on a fatal ship accident. So, and he was 48. I mean, you don't assume that you're going to work and then know that that's, quote unquote, that's it, curtains. And we've seen it more recently with people that everyone can relate to, like Kobe Bryant getting in a helicopter, something that he's probably done thousands of times. And so it's chilling, it's devastating, but I also think at one level it shows the mortality with which we all live, and there's something to be honored about that, which is, as trite as it might sound, the whole carpe diem. We don't know how long we're going to be here, and so for that reason, I would invite people to, one, make the most of it, but also lean into love, lean into kindness, lean into compassion, because if you only had a day left, would you rather walk around hurting people, being bitter, making people wrong, and judging people? Or would you want to remember that the last few hours, days, weeks of your life was spent in an energy of kindness and humanity towards each other? And I think more than ever, we need that. And we're seeing some pretty disgusting, I don't use that word very often, but disgusting behaviors out there in the way that people treat each other. And it's a shame.
I'm like shocked, and I shouldn't be shocked. I've been around a long time. I've seen a lot of it. But like you said, it's like kind of really coming to the surface, and we're getting to see it all. And it is.
Yeah, we get to be responsible collectively, right? It's easy for us to sit here as the viewers on a TV or watching a TV show as though we're not involved. But I like to believe it's a heady thing for people to get their mind around, but like, we all contribute to the collective, and you might not feel like you're somebody out there who's a racist and inflicting harm, potentially death, as we're seeing. But do you make your spouse wrong? Do you make your parents wrong? That energy is still the same. It doesn't obviously compare in terms of the consequences, but bringing harm,
but
whether it be
matter.
just through voice or physically. Yeah, it's contributing, right? And again, everything in context, it's all relative. I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying, but I do feel like, what is it? He without sin cast the first stone, and it's so for me, I'm very conscious of not judging others as much as I really truly believe I come from love and I don't make people wrong. I still, until such time that I fully understand someone's history, I can't know why they're doing what they're doing. And that, to me, breeds nothing but compassion and patience and understanding. It doesn't mean I condone behavior. It doesn't mean that I approve of it or I want it. But at least I would understand why someone's doing what they're doing. And then perhaps I can inspire them to look through a different lens and live a better life.
And when you do that, because you did that for me, I mean, I know...
Yeah.
I grew up with such judgment. My parents were very judgy, but it's not their fault.
No.
I took on that. And yeah, just the judgment like that on, quickly, was not
Yeah.
serving me at all. It felt yucky. It just didn't bring
Yeah.
me intimacy. It didn't bring me love. It didn't bring me freedom. It didn't bring me peace.
No.
And
What it was doing, it was a protection mechanism, right? So most people are just hurt because of their own past trials and tribulations. So you were hurt as a little girl because of the way that you were treated. And it's not even saying the way you were treated was wrong. It just,
right.
to a sensitive child, and this is why I have so much sympathy, for parents, because it's very difficult. But children are also very, 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 very impressionable and sensitive.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart right now to think of how many kids are being impacted negatively because of being in a house where there's a lot of stress and potentially abuse.
Yeah.
But that being said, your hurt got, adapted into self-preservation and self-protection. And one of the ways we protect ourselves is to make somebody wrong so that we can be right. It's a very basic, and honestly, it's a very childish operating system that most people still function, as a society. We look in government,
Yeah.
we look in everything that's going on in this polarization. It's right, wrong, right? And
Right.
there's just no power there. There's no real intelligence. And so in your own way, and it's kind of you to share with your audience, you were coming from this childish perspective of you were hurt and you were making, a parent wrong for the way they treated you. But, you're the one carrying the poison. Like Shakespeare said, hatred is a curved blade, right? So if we have hatred, if we have judgment towards another, we are the one carrying the energetic vibration of that negativity. Now, of course, it may be impacting the other person's life. They might be living on the other side of the planet. They don't even feel any of it. You're the one just drinking your own poison. So again, even when you break it down like that, it's like, why would I want to do that to myself just to be right about an opinion that I have? It really is pretty childish,
We talked about that. And then I think my cancer was due to that. My health issues were due to that.
Yeah.
I was carrying a lot of negativity, a lot of poison. And you're right. The other person doesn't even really know, or is living their life and fine. And I'm there stuck in the mud.
And I'm just helping someone now who's having this revelation so powerfully for herself, who's got cancer, and she's going through all of the treatments and doesn't want to because obviously, it's killing her in the hopes of killing cancer, right? It's like burn your house down and hopefully get rid of your rat problem. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. So, but she's recognizing because of the internal fight and the internal dialogue that she's had for so many years, like she's 50 plus. And so she's had 3 or 4 decades of quote unquote the fight or flight response inside of her as a byproduct of her view on the world, that she's not wanted, she's not loved, she's all of these feelings of inadequacy, which creates internal stress and resistance and tension, which over time is going to be deleterious to your tissues. You're not going to rejuvenate skin and tissues in a beautiful way because you're basically creating a hostile environment. You are literally at war with yourself. No one's fault, but that's the physics of what's happening. And so eventually, the actual, the physiological expression of that has to be some sort of cancer, which is this mutiny. Your cells are like, fuck, I want out of this. This is a hostile environment.
Right. I'm not happy here.
No.
This is not good. Right. And that brings us back to the point of, just moving forward, with this pandemic and Corona, and just, is that really how you want your body to, move forward as you age? Is that how you feel like you're really going to be healthy going back out into the world? And we all are potentially going to get COVID, but I do believe we are going to survive it, most of us. So, but mindfully, we need to believe that we're going to survive it, but we need that terrain of our body, not just with the food, but with the mental aspect that,
that's the
we
worst
love
virus
ourselves.
is fear.
Yeah.
The worst virus 100% is fear. And of course, everybody's fear is being triggered right now. And it doesn't help when the media just seem to want to actually perpetuate that.
Right.
Whether you believe it's intentional or not, that's everybody's choice to make. But nonetheless, fear is the ultimate virus, right? So if we just look at it physiologically, we are a hodgepodge of viruses and bacteria to the point. And when I first heard this, I have a Bachelor of Science in Biology, cut up dead bodies, I've done the whole thing. not a doctor, but I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I was just looking at the organism that we are as a collective. We have more DNA from viruses and bacteria than we do from our own human genome, which is just shocking, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, the way I look at it is like I welcome it. Like, come on in, you know, there's room, it's fine. So immediately I don't have the energy of resistance in my body, which is the fear. So, you know, think about like even sports, right? Let's take a different metaphor. I work with a lot of pro athletes. If you try and catch a ball and your hand is stiff, like it's rigid or even closed, you're not going to catch the ball. You want something soft to be able to receive. So energetically, emotionally, psychologically, if people are in a state of fear, fight, tension, the enemy, all of these words that people are hearing about this virus, it's a battle, it's a war. Well, now you are ready to actually go into conflict, especially psychologically, if you know, tested positive. You're already in a war before you've gotten anything. You know, I'd much rather wait and see and trust. Like, I don't know, why would I worry about something that hasn't even happened yet?
Hasn't happened
you know,
yet.
This beyond a virus. This is just life. People are constantly trying to predict a future that hasn't happened yet and then avoid it. Or as I say, people are trying to avoid a bad future that hasn't happened yet, which is human, no judgment, but it's exhausting. And then you wonder why your adrenals are shot and you're not sleeping very well. So for me, the same is true with the virus. The stats are clear. It's 99% of us are going to be fine. More people died from ateriogenesis, which is medical errors. 4 times, like 400,000 last year. That's not to say that we should not take precaution. I think it's smart.
Agreed.
We're doing the right thing. Keep your distance. Let's see where we are. We're learning as we go. You know, the governor of New York is even saying, hey, I messed up. I think it was better that we overreacted. We got ready, even though we had warships that never got used. Hospitals were half empty. Some were obviously overloaded. But, you know, but now we can, okay, calm down. Maybe this isn't as bad as we thought. But emotionally for me, energetically, it is important, I believe, just my opinion, that we make space for it. If you are resistant to it, whether it's virus, somebody, a boss, the economy, like whatever it is, fill in the blank. It doesn't have to be about the virus. You're already creating tension. You're already in a state of dis-ease, the absence of ease, which is then precursor to you physiologically being sick. So it starts with perception. It starts with your view. Be big enough as a being, because I assert you're so powerful that you can make space for it. It's okay. It's okay. And that's a different mindset than I'm in a constant anticipation of a potential threat, whether it's a virus or whatever it is, because you're already living in pain and suffering before the event has even transpired.
Yeah. Ah, touche, mister. Like that.
Amen.
I mean, amen. Like leaving the space is so crucial. That's another really valuable word you just used. We don't give ourselves room to maneuver. We don't give ourselves space. We like just trap ourselves inside this. I mean, perfect example of my clients whose parents have cancer. So genetically, they're already predisposed to thinking they're going to get cancer.
Yes.
And we know that that's not the case.
No.
You know?
And even cancer, like, look, let's fill in the blank, right? Because there's a lot of tension and there's polarization about the virus, and some people are very scared and they think that there's a cure and a vaccine, and that's what they've got to do, you know, and that's their choice. And then other people are recognizing that they're maybe stronger, they're less predisposed, and that's their choice. So I think that argument starts to get very sensitive for people, and we've got to be careful. But I do feel like beyond the virus, look at cancer, look at, you know, obesity, diabetes, you know, hypertension, anything that anyone's dealing with. All of these things get this negative connotation, right? Oh, you got cancer. So immediately, you know, having worked with oncologists, it actually accentuates and exacerbates the condition. Even the expression, the fight against cancer, you know, no offense to the person who came up with the marketing program, but the fight is the precursor to the cancer. Why do you want to keep fighting? You know, fight is disease. Right?
Yeah.
So all of these things, as far as I'm concerned, come to the surface so we can actually wake up and go, oh, hang on a minute. Yes, like you experience, like the people I get to help, maybe it's because of my internal dialogue that's creating tension, that's creating dis-ease, the absence of ease in my own physiology, in my relationships, in my career, that is the precursor to the problems that keep manifesting. So rather than looking at problems as a bad thing that we have to keep fighting, we can look at them as warning signs. We can look at them as gifts of like, okay, what is off in my life? Where am I out of integrity in the way that I run my life that has created this manifestation of a problem or a disease that helps me? It informs me that I'm a little bit off. And then we get to actually be educated and make better choices for ourselves. I mean, what a beautiful feedback system if you know how to look at it from that way versus being reactive, trying to manage symptoms. And this is why I love Ayurveda and these Eastern philosophies, as they go to the root cause of why do we have some sort of disease, dis-ease, dissatisfaction, disharmony in our life. And that becomes a much more empowering way to go through life versus constantly, it's like whack-a-mole, right? Like you're constantly fighting the next thing that comes up, and it's exhausting for people. It's a drain on them emotionally, it's a drain on them financially, and it's certainly a drain on them physically. And I feel it's unnecessary. People are going to make their own choices. People feel comfort. They might want to take medication. Have at it, But I think for a lot of people now, they want to be empowered. They want to go, wow, if I could be free, if I could be free of disease, of pain, of suffering, of medication, of any sort of malaise in my life, I pick that one, and that's what I'm hoping everyone's leading into.
Even free of the fear, always looking over your shoulder, always thinking that something's going to come down the road. That isn't good. That freeing is incredible.
Yeah, that's exhausting. And I think as I said, that's the greatest virus. And it's no one's fault. As human beings, we're designed in the current operating system that we have mentally to try and survive. And if you're trying to survive, you are always looking out for potential threats. And this is really just up the ante in terms of a potential threat. Like, it's the perfect threat, isn't it? Because you can't freaking see it. It's hidden in the corner of a cardboard box. It's like, I mean, and again, I don't want to belittle it.
You mean that Amazon box that's being delivered to my front door? Like, that's where...
I don't know. I'm like, bring it on. It's fine.
I agree.
And being, sensitive to, for some people, it is scary, and they're doing the right thing by taking all the precautions because they're more susceptible. But when we look at it from an emotional perspective, not the physiological impact it's having on people's lives, the emotional is like, it's like, it's this, like, where is it? Like, it's perfect to trigger the ultimate form of fear because it's an invisible opponent, apparently, right? And so that's why I think really so much of the tension that's coming to the surface is because of the underlying fear that was already there. Like, I did a video right at the beginning of this, and I said, look, COVID isn't creating fear. It's revealing the fear that was already there. And just as we're seeing in society, whether it be in government, the police force, whatever quote unquote ill conduct is happening, it's not like it wasn't happening. We were just somewhat oblivious, and now it's all coming to the surface. And collectively as a society, we get to decide how we're going to deal with that, responsibly for ourselves, collectively, what do we agree upon, and these are challenging conversations, but they are nonetheless important ones to have so that we can collectively evolve.
Right. Absolutely. And the same thing with like the illnesses, the cancer, the autoimmune, all that stuff. I mean, that is teaching us something. All of those things, they've been percolating in the system because we're not functioning the way we should, emotionally, spiritually, physically. So, it's not like oh my God, your body's attacking itself with the autoimmune stuff. I mean, again, a negative connotation, but it's like really these things I always look at, the same with this virus, is a gift. It's a gift to be able to up level what I want in my life to be living without fear and the freedom and the sense of calm and, just being able to really like not be afraid, like you said, just not to be afraid of, because I always lived in fear. I mean, after having the cancer, and then my husband passed away of cancer at 45. And and then my two girls at 10 and 7 were like devastated. So to see them grow and still have that fear to that level is pretty intense.
No, these are scary times, and rightfully so. People's lives are being impacted, and we could argue more so from the collateral damage than the deaths, but deaths are deaths, and we don't want to belittle that. People's lives are affected. People are, truly being impacted. But again, I think it's all about perspective and relativity. Again, many more people die from medical errors. Many more people, millions die from cardiac disease, from diabetes, from cancer.
Yeah.
I would like to see as much attention from whether it be government or from organizations and corporations towards these diseases as we're seeing with regards to a virus. I understand it's different. The argument is this is contagious. But I would actually argue that the most insidious form of contagion is mimicking. As human beings, we copy each other. And so that to me is the greatest contagion, because, the child that mimics their parents. And so we propagate these, perennial diseases. So maybe, we've changed the argument about what does it mean for something to be contagious. Well, I'm going to follow the people that I'm inspired by, whether it be I'm standing in a line at a sports stadium and they're buying, a hot dog and a soda, well, I'm going to do the same. And that's maybe, again, this is very careful the way we word these things, but a precursor or contributing factor to obesity and diabetes. If we can maybe change these behaviors, this is why it's an oil tanker, right? It's not going to spin on a dime. These are conversations we've got to work in together and slowly move what it means to actually just be healthy, period. Can we create a healthy society so that maybe if there is another virus in a couple of years or 3-5 years, as there probably will be.
Well, there will be, don't you?
Can we collectively be healthier and more prepared so that we don't have to shut down the economy? People don't have to kill themselves. They don't have to lose their livelihood. We don't have to spend billions of dollars with pharmaceutical companies trying to scramble to make a vaccine, which has its place and they do a lot of great good. But maybe they could apply that money towards something that we would feel actually has a better impact for society. Again, these are big conversations. Overall, and there's a lot of emotions around them. But I just feel that's where I would put the focus is who doesn't want to be healthier, who doesn't want to feel more vital. And we have an opportunity, I feel, certainly yourself, me, to help people, support them in that way and do what we can to make people feel better about themselves day to day with or without a virus.
I mean, it's the biggest gift I think I've ever been able to give someone, in my lifetime. Or it's also a gift for me too, to be with people that really do want to change and make the change, and do make the changes and see such life-changing things happen to themselves, when they are full diabetics and go off their insulin and, go off their cholesterol meds. I mean, they heal from cancer without doing Western. Now, I'm not advocating no Western by a long shot, but when they change their ways and they see how powerful they are, I mean, each of us, I think, are so incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And, one person changes, the next person changes. You're right. Like, you have this cascading effect on the people that, are in your circle. There's nothing better.
No. And again, no one wants to feel like a victim. It's not fun to feel like you're a victim of whatever's going on, whether it's you're on one side against the government or you're on the other side against the virus. It doesn't really matter. Nobody wants to feel like a victim. We want to feel empowered. We want to feel free. We want to feel like we can handle life. That's to me is a fulfilling experience as a human being. So whatever we can do to support each other, to feel safe, to feel healthy, to feel empowered, that I don't know anyone who would not want that conversation. Maybe there are a few who just are so stubborn and they want to be right. Then that's fine,
there are those out there, lots of them.
Of course, and everyone can pick whatever life they want to live. That's their soul's journey, and that's up to them. So
exactly.
I just realized we are running out of time, and I wanted to give something, to the group.
I just was going to do that.
Every time I've done a live, I've gifted for free my Free Your Mind course to someone who takes a screenshot or a little video clip of us right now and then posts it either in their feed or on their story with our Instagram addresses. So I forgot to mention that at the beginning because it's been so nice to do it on the
story. I did on the story early in, but I did it pre our Insta Live. But no, thanks for mentioning it again. Can you talk a little bit about the course? We have like 5 minutes at most.
Yeah, I mean, so I just put it together as a sort of a mother of necessity. People wanted help and support, and not everyone can work with me, and I can't, have enough time to work with everyone. So it's an online program. There's two main components, which is insights, which is me really talking about the components of the ego and why we struggle. I think one of the most powerful parts is you witness me work with 4 people and take them through the process of awakening or enlightenment. You know, it's a heady word. It sounds very LA, but you know, getting beyond their fears and their constraints. And so that's super powerful. So you get to actually, by vicariously watching somebody talk about their problems, which we can all relate to, because at the end of the day, we all share the same concerns and fears. And then you get to see me take someone to the other side of that and experience this sense of freedom. So they literally walk out of here as a different human being. So that's the course. As I said, just as part of this Instagram Live, it's trying times. I've wanted to gift for free to someone who shares a bit of our live. And we have been doing a lot of scholarships. So, you know, if people struggle with the scholarships.
Scholarships, got it. Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of people, you know, maybe they can't afford it. I understand. Yeah. That's totally fine.
Okay.
They can still apply for a scholarship, and that's something that we've honored, like literally hundreds of scholarships. So, you know, they sort of can afford whatever they can, and we figure it out.
Okay. Thank you.
You're so welcome, my dear.
You are.
Yeah, great to be with you,
and everyone in this world. And thank you for doing this with me today. I'm honored.
Thank you. It's great to see you. Always. Can't wait to give you a hug in person. And
me too.
Yeah, I just send so much love to everybody. We're all in this really together. Let's not just say that. Let's be it. And everybody's scared, and everyone's got their perspectives, and it's okay. And we can listen to everybody's point of view. And I really trust that there will be something that collectively we can create out of this that is a win-win for everybody. And that's my stand. That's my commitment.
That's what I put in my journal. Like every morning, for some reason, I guess I know the reason, I write down, like, I'm sending love to people in my life and sending love to anybody who needs it. Like, I genuinely have this feeling that I want to push my heart out into the world.
Yeah.
You know, and whoever can use that help, it just energetically, I think, is huge.
I don't think there's anything that is more profound or fulfilling for a human being than to realize that we're making a difference.
Yeah.
You know, I think we all collectively, you know, recognize it, but individually, I feel it's something that we all really aspire to, is to know that something we did made a difference and it impacted someone's life in a positive way. And if we can start to move the scale from, you know, sad as it is to say, there is a lot of harm out there in the world, and maybe we just get to neutral where at least there's no harm, and maybe we can lean into, actually, let's make a difference, let's contribute, let's be loving, let's be kind, let's be helpful. So if we sort of look at that sliding scale, it's okay. People are scared. Sometimes we say shit we don't mean. Sometimes we're actually physically, you know, a little bit abusive towards people. It happens. But let's at least make a commitment to get to neutral, no harm. And ideally, let's get to make a difference that inspires and impacts people's lives in a way that we can all benefit from. And as they say, all boats rise with the tide. So
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Beautiful. I love the neutral part too. That's,
it's important. It's a part of it, you know. It's like, otherwise it can be too much of a shift. Somebody who's been hurt in their own way through their upbringing, and maybe their parents were very mercurial, or it was a hostile environment, or God forbid they were hit, or, you know, then they're going to have that as part of their makeup.
Just moving the needle to,
As I said, I wrote an article, or not an article, a piece on my Instagram recently about choosing love. And I said, you know, even if you can't choose love, at least choose no harm.
Right.
And that's a beautiful progression in the right direction. And I really believe at the deepest level of every human being, everybody wants to at least come from that place.
It's true. Even if they don't act it, but you got, amen.
All right. Much love.
Yeah.
See
Have
you.
a good rest of the day. Get your
too.
body
Bye.
outside.
Yes.
I know you're outside all the time anyway, so.
Endlessly. See
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye, Peter.